When you have a music business question that you can't figure out, do what all the stars do. Ask Orville. Here is the star of the show, Orville Allman.
I'm Orville. I'm with the law firm of Allman Law PLLC. The question from the viewer today is, how many corporations have you helped form? What's the reason for a corporation? Who is involved in the corporation? What's the difference between a C corporation and an LLC? Well, I've probably been involved in the formation of hundreds of corporations and LLCs, if you combine the two. And a C Corp is very seldom used. They're mostly used by big businesses. There's tax consequences. That's where you get into where the corporation is taxed. And then any shareholders that get dividends, they're also taxed too. That's called a C corporation. Most small businesses and small companies and most artists, if they're going to use corporations, they use what they call an S corp. An S corp, you're taxed as a partnership or a sole proprietor, and so you don't pay corporate income taxes. They give you what they call a K-1 at the end of the year, and you just pay individual taxes. So as a tax point, the difference between a C Corp and an S Corp is a C Corp pays taxes and an S Corp doesn't pay taxes. Now, why do you form a corporation or you form an LLC? Well, the primary reason is that if you do business as an individual and one of your employees screws up, or you have then you're personally liable as their employer. If they do that within the course of their employment, you're personally liable for that. So if they have a car wreck on the way to pick up supplies for your company, or if you're doing a recording session and you send them out to pick up dinner for the recording crew, and they work for you, and they have a car wreck, then if you don't have the insurance to cover it, or the claim is over the insurance, and you're not an LLC or an S Corp or a C Corp, then they can not only, when they sue you, they're going to sue you individually, which means if they win, whatever the insurance doesn't cover, they can go against your personal property, your bank accounts, your car, your home, any personal assets you have, they can come against you personally. If you're doing business as a corporation or as an LLC, they can only go against the assets that are owned by that LLC or that corporation, which in a lot of cases are shell corporations or shell LLCs that don't own many assets or don't own any assets. And you can go and bankrupt or terminate that LLC or that C Corp and start another one, but they can't go after your personal assets. They can't go after your bank account, your personal bank accounts. They can't go after your home, your personal car. They can only go after the corporate or the LLC assets. So that's the main reason why you would form an LLC or a C corporation. Who's involved in the corporation or the LLC? Well, that's basically up to the people. The owner, they are the owners of the company, whether they're shareholders or they're members. Shareholders would be the members of the corporation. Members would be the people that own the LLC. And who are those? You know, it's just whoever is part of the company. Like with bands that have touring company, normally it's the band that owns that, or a solo artist that has a touring LLC. The artist normally owns that, but it just depends on, or it could be with an investor that bought into the company, that bought for so many shares of the company, or bought so many membership shares. So who's in the company, who's in the LLC or the corporation varies depending on what type of LLC or what type of corporation it is. So as far as that, as far as a corporation, LLC, anytime you have employees, you should never do business on your own as a personal thing. You should also always have an LLC or a corporation, or you will be personally liable for the acts of your employees if they do something wrong. Just like a songwriter, if you own a publishing company and you own it as an individual, and one of your songwriters infringes upon somebody else's song, then you're going to be personally liable for that infringement. Yeah, you may have an indemnification from your writer, but if your writer doesn't have any money and you're the only one with the deep pockets, then you're going to end up the one paying it because you're not going to be able to get that money back from that songwriter. But if you're under an LLC or a corporation, then they won't be able to go after your personal assets. They'll only be able to go under the assets that are owned by that LLC or that corporation.
The material is for informational purposes only and does not in any way constitute legal advice or create an attorney-client relationship. The information contained in this website cannot and is not meant to replace the advice of competent legal counsel licensed in your state. To get your question answered, send an email to john@nashvilleninjamgt.com with questions for Orville and visit the Ask Orville page on Facebook and leave your question on the wall.